So let's talk a little bit more about some stories of Thor and Loki. And first, what we're going to do is talk about how Thor's hammer was created. And we'll talk about Loki going a bit from trickster to actually doing evil and what the outcome of that will be until we end with the end of everything. Now, Thor's wife is Sif. She is a goddess of the harvest, and her hair is gold, like wheat is gold. And one night, Loki decided, I'll cut her hair off. Because, of course, a really good idea is to mess with the wife of the strongest, angriest, most uncontrollable being in the entire universe. And Thor is basically going to destroy Loki for this. And so Loki says, no, don't worry. I'll fix it. I'll fix it. I can fix this. Okay. So he goes to talk to the dwarves. And the sons of the dwarf Ivaldi make some magical things for him. Because basically Loki is saying, I'm gonna bribe you. I'm gonna get you some nice stuff, and then so don't kill me. So he makes the best of all ships. It always has a favorable wind, and you can fold it up and put it in your pocket, and it apparently takes only the weight of something that you can fold up and put in your pocket. Kind of like Ant-Man, maybe. Okay. He makes a spear called Gununganir, which never misses, and that's going to be a present for Odin. And he's going to make golden hair for Sif. Actual golden hair, as in made out of gold. These are going to be great presents. Freyr, brother of Freya, the sex goddess, is going to get the ship. Odin gets the spear. Sif gets gorgeous hair. I mean, again, real golden hair. But since he's in Dwarfville, Loki approaches a couple of brothers, Broker and Sindri, and says, I'll bet you can't make better stuff than these other dwarves did. And they said, okay, what's the bet? And Loki, not being too bright, says, I'll bet my head. And the dwarves go, okay. Now Loki realizes very quickly, this maybe is not a good bet, because it's like, even though these are three really cool presents, these other ones, remember, spear that never misses, ship that you can put in your pocket, golden hair. He's going to have to try to rig this contest. So he turns himself into a fly to sting Sindri's hand. And the first thing that these two dwarves have made is a golden boar, as in boar made out of gold, and it can fly. And why a boar fly? I don't know. I'm not a dwarf. I don't know why they decided that. So Sindri is working some more gold, and the fly bites Broker, the brother who's working the bellows, on the neck. And Sindri makes a great ring called Draupnir, and every 9 nights, 8 new golden rings magically fall from this ring. So in other words, you're always going to have more gold. Actually, if they paid attention to how things would work, that means that the entire universe is going to be swallowed up in gold rings eventually, but we'll leave that part alone. So the last thing is going to be even better. So Loki stings Broker's eyelid, and that causes a little bit of a glitch. So as he makes Mjolnir, the handle is just a little bit short, but it'll never miss, and it'll fly back to the hand of the thrower, which is going to, of course, as you know, be Thor. So they bring out these new gifts, and it's decided, you know what? The golden hair and the spear and the ship are pretty cool, but the golden boar that flies and the golden ring that makes more gold and the hammer that never fails to destroy whatever it gets thrown at, those are even better. So Loki has bet his head and he's lost it. And he says, but you can't have any of my neck. And they realize, well, it's kind of hard to say where the head ends and the neck begins. So Loki got to keep his head, but the dwarves were allowed to show his lips shut, which meant, at least for a little bit of time, there was some peace in Asgard. But not forever, because there's going to be a contest. Frigg, Odin's wife, mother of many of the gods, loves Balder, the beautiful, most of all of her children. And he's called the Beautiful, not simply because he is physically radiant, but because he has a beautiful soul. Everyone pretty much loves Balder. Take a guess who's jealous. Of course, Loki. So Frigg goes around and begs everything in the universe to promise never to harm Balder. And they all say, of course we won't hurt him. We think he's beautiful too. Everything in the universe somehow swears, except one little plant, the mistletoe. Well, if we were doing a modern version of this, what would happen is at the office winter party, wouldn't be a Christmas party because they're Asgardians, Balder would be under the mistletoe with some young intern and smooching him or her. I'm not making judgments on Balder. And he'd have to resign for sexual harassment. But this is a much cooler story than that. Everyone's throwing stuff at Balder. It's a big party. Mead and ale and wine are flowing. Okay? And nothing hits him. Everything misses. If you throw a rock, it might fall short. It might veer off at the last second. It might go over him. Nothing hits him. They're all having a great time, except for Balder's brother, Hodur, which means blind one. And Loki goes to him and says, say, why aren't you playing? And Hodur says, Hodur, which means, well, clearly, I have a problem in visual acuity and so cannot really aim anything. And Loki says, well, I'll help you, buddy. And Hodur says, Hodur, which means, I didn't actually know we were all that close, but thank you. That's very kind of you. However, there's nothing left to throw. Everything's been thrown. And Loki says, not everything. Look, here's a dart made out of mistletoe. And Hodur says, Hodur. Well, that is extremely kind of you. However, still, with my problems in sight, I don't know that I'll aim it that well. And Loki says, no, don't be ridiculous. I'll help. I'll make sure that it hits the target. And Hodur says, Hodur, which means, you being Loki, of course, nothing could possibly go wrong. And so he throws that dart, and it hits Balder right in the eye and pierces his brain, and Balder falls down dead. And Loki amps grace. So this did not go well. Balder is dead. But Frigg is a determined goddess. She goes down, she has somebody go down to visit Loki's daughter, Hel, in Hell, because they didn't get too creative on the naming. And Hel says, yep, Balder is here. He's not in Valhalla, which is where half of the brave ones go after death, rescued by the Valkyrie. The other half, by the way, spend eternity in a place of Freya's devising, so we won't speculate what's going on there. In Valhalla, they fight all day and feast all night, but Freya, being the goddess of what she is, will just say probably something else is going on. But anyway, so now Frigg is going around the universe getting everyone to promise they will weep and mourn for Balder. Everyone. And if everyone already agreed that they wouldn't hurt him, except the mistletoe, who now is very sorry, but you didn't ask. But there is one goddess, Tok, who will not mourn, and that's probably Loki in disguise. Apparently Loki promised not to hurt Balder, but he didn't promise not to find ways around that. And so the gods have to hunt him down, because this is not just a trick. This is actual evil. This is badness. So he is captured. And he's taken down to a cave. And one of his sons gets turned into a wolf, who kills one of Loki's other sons, rips him apart, and then they take his guts and bind Loki down. And over his head, they place a poisonous snake, and it drips venom onto him. And every time that the venom hits his forehead, he writhes in agony. And this, by the way, is why we have earthquakes. Sigrun, Loki's wife, sits by his side with a wooden bowl to catch the drops. But every so often, she has to go empty the bowl, and that's why we still have earthquakes. Because Loki is still buried underground, suffering, waiting for his time. And that's going to be Ragnarok, which is the doom of the gods. We'll know that it's coming when there has been Fimbulvinter, the long winter, 3 winters in a row. And remember, in Norse cosmology, we have winter and summer, and that's it. But now imagine winter and winter and winter. And there have been years in Wisconsin that I was sure that we had Fimbulvinter. And people will turn on each other. They'll be so desperate for food. Imagine the hunting for toilet paper and pasta that we had at the beginning of the pandemic, and then make it much, 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 much worse. And nobody's worrying about disinfectant or masks. And father will slay son, and son will slay father, and daughter will slay mother, and everyone is fighting. And the wolves, Skoll and Hati, who have hunted the sun and the moon since the beginning of the times, will eat them. And Yggdrasil, the great tree, will tremble. And the chain or the ribbon that has been holding back Fenrir will snap. And Jormungandr, the serpent, will break free from the oceans. And Naglfar, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, a ship made from the toenail clippings and fingernail clippings of all the dead who've ever been, disgusting, will be captained by Loki. Fenrir will run across the earth, devouring everything. The leader of the fire giants, Surt, will destroy the rainbow bridge to Asgard. Heimdall, the sentry, will blow the Gjallar horn to announce the moment that the gods have been fearing. This is why Odin sacrificed his eye, why he sacrificed himself to try to prevent this. But in most tellings, it cannot be prevented. So Fenrir will destroy Odin, probably swallowing him. But then one of Odin's sons, Vidar, will avenge his father with a giant magical boot made from the little bits of leather left over from all the boots in the world. If we've got a ship made up of toenails and fingernails, we've got a boot made up of boot droppings. And he'll destroy Fenrir. Thor and Jormungandr will fight, and Thor will destroy the sea serpent, finally. But as the serpent dies, it spits out its last bit of venom, which hits Thor and kills him. He will be avenged by his sons. But eventually, fire will cover everything. The world will sink into the sea, and all will be black and desolate. But in some versions, that's not the end. Out of the sea will rise a new land, greener and cleaner and lovelier than ever before. And Balder will return, and Vali and Hodor, and Thor's sons Modi and Magni. And there will be one man and one woman, just as there was at the beginning of all things, made of parts of different trees. And the sun will shine, and the eagles will fly in the sky, and the gods will take out something like a chessboard and begin to tell the stories that only they know, and begin everything again. That is a little bit of an introduction to the Norse in England and other parts of the UK, and the stories of their gods and goddesses.